Hey, this is a Las Vegas Sun Sports podcast, The Rebel Room. Kind of odd that we're talking Mike Grimala, Ray Brewer. Never in our crazy wild predictions would we have UNLV hosting the Mountain West Football Championship game, but that's what's happening noon Saturday, Allegiant Stadium. UNLV going for its first conference title in the Mountain West against perennial power Boise State. And I tell you what, I got to give myself credit, Mike. Every year I write a column that says why UNLV is going to qualify for a bowl. Here are the games they're going to win. And every year I'm pathetically wrong and it's embarrassing and I'm labeled as a homer. Mm-hmm. This year I don't write the column. Don't know why I didn't do it. Well, I don't know if it was a time thing or if we had something else. And they're 9-3 playing for the Mountain West. So
I don't even know if you would have seen it, if you would have seen this coming. Not only are they in the Mountain West Championship game, they're hosting the game, and they're hosting the game even though they lost in the final week of the regular season because they had such a lead. They were so far ahead in the computer rankings. They really separated themselves from the rest of the conference, which is kind of incredible. They didn't just sneak into this game. They kicked the door down. They were the established number one team heading into the final week. They could absorb a loss. It's I could have been, I guess, talked into, hey, if everything goes right, maybe they sneak in. But they're not sneaking in. They're hosting the game. Yeah, it's crazy.
And it's been a lot of an interesting way that they got there. Again, everything that's happened this year is just like, if you're a UNLV supporter, you can't go to bed and dream up a scenario this good, right? I mean, your kicker's a finalist for National Kicker of the Year. Your offense has more rushing touchdowns than most offenses.
Anyone. Number one in the country.
And that's what I thought. I didn't want to be wrong, right? Your coach is being sought after to go to, Mississippi State or Houston. Not a great thing, but it's, we always worried that Bobby or Tony or Marcus would be that guy. And here we go with, Barry Odom, just a solid coach getting the most out of the players. Your quarterback's freshman of the year. It's unbelievable. And, I think we've talked a few times, like Air Force, is this the biggest game in UNLV history? Mm-hmm. San Jose, Boise, I'd rather win a Mountain West championship than a bowl game.
I think most people feel that way, especially the way that it lined up where you're hosting the game. You've got a chance to have more people than have ever seen a UNLV football game in terms of people on UNLV's side. Like, we've seen the stadium packed a couple times with visiting fans, but you might see a good number for UNLV. And it's got a little bit more sizzle, I think, because the opponent ended up being Boise State. Now, it's not a typical Boise State team where they're, a national power and they're having one of their great seasons. They're down this year. They fired their coach, but they've still got that prestige within the Mountain West where if you wanted to create some sort of passing of the torch narrative, like, is this UNLV's moment to ascend to dominance in the Mountain West, and where do they go from here? Is this the jumping off point? Then the opponent you want in that game is probably Boise State, right? Just like symbolically, and just to give it like as much importance as you can.
I'd love for it to be Reno, but I have a one-track mind. You've learned that, right?
That's true. But it would be different.
But yeah, I agree.
If it was San Jose State ended up in this game, it would be big, but I think just Boise State gets that little extra squeeze. That's just me. So what do you think? Are you more interested in the big picture of what's going on with the football program right now and the coaches and the rumors and the where do they go from here and what do they look like next year? Are they number one ranked next year? Or do you want to dig into are they going to win this game? How do they stop the Boise running back?
Yeah, so for me, and I wrote about this on last Saturday, I don't want to get caught up in what's next or how the team's going to look and feel after Saturday, after the league championship game. We've been waiting forever for this.
Yeah.
Why not enjoy the guys that we have out there and the coach that we have out there And, as Coach Odom said during his presser Monday, there's 20 teams practicing this week. UNLV is one of those 20 teams. This is a season that we've aspired for, that we've dreamt of, that we've wanted, and now we have. So let's see if you could win the Mountain West Championship. Boise is not the juggernaut Fiesta Bowl, champion team, but they still have a really good roster of great recruits who are talented.
They have the Mountain West Player of the Year.
Yeah, and this is a ring game. You're going to get a lot of emotion, a lot of people trying hard because there's a big trophy sitting there, and you're champions forever. You get a ring, and it goes to show you the state of Boise where they fire their coach for underachieving, and here they are. Player of the year in the league, as you said, and about to win the Mountain. And could win the Mountain West, and that's the standard they have. And it's darn interesting for UNLV. The basketball team and the football team have the same amount of losses on December 1st.
Yeah, it's wild. I like the sentiment of that. People should be enjoying this because you waited a long time for it, and it really is an enjoyable team, and their season has been so just interesting. And from the backup quarterback doing it to this brand new offense that no one's really seen before to this extent, and just the way that they've done it. And you got a receiver who's going to set a program record. It's just a very interesting team and a very likable team. So I agree, you want to focus on this game and stuff, but the other stuff like college football, the landscape, it just doesn't really let you ignore the fact that Barry Odom was contacted by other schools this past week, or that your offensive coordinator interviewed at one of your chief rivals to be their head coach. It's just something it's always in the background. It's a good problem to have, but it is always in the background.
Yeah, you could also say, okay, a bunch of kids went in the portal this week, right? The college regular season ended on last Saturday, and
I believe the portal opens on Monday.
But
kids are
saying they're in the portals,
Yeah.
And so how is UNLV keeping an eye on the portal and being one of 20 teams that's still playing a game? How are you going to recruit, close your recruiting class, signing days coming up in 3 weeks, and prepare for a bowl game, which football teams across the nation handle every year.
Yeah.
But UNLV's never really had to do.
For UNLV, it's usually the question is, how do you recruit when you're going into a hot season, or they just fired someone and the new hire has to scramble together and get a recruiting class? So those are usually the questions we're asking in perpetuity. And now it's more of how is Odom going to recruit a quarterback this year when you don't really know if Brennan Marion is going to be here next year? Or, is Ricky White going to come back for his senior year when his offensive coordinator, he just had a breakout year. Now his offensive coordinator might be leaving. It might be risky for him to, play another college season and see his stats go down. So he might be off to the NFL. These are questions that UNLV has never really had to ask before. So we are entering uncharted territory there.
Yeah. And it's interesting. This is kind of what we've always wanted. UNLV football has kind of just been a thing that you do in September until basketball rolled out the ball, and now it's become this great story with a bunch of sub-storylines.
You know what? I pulled up to the game at Allegiant against San Jose State, the finale. I got there about 2 hours early, and as I'm pulling into Russell Road, I see in the Allegiant parking lot just people tailgating in the actual lot all the way up to the road, which I've never seen before at a UNLV game, where the UNLV fans are there hours early, and there's so many of them that they've actually filled that parking lot with tailgaters. So it's already the atmosphere is different. It's kind of catching on. That's the kind of season it's been. What do you think? this is a big picture question, but what do you think happens, or what changes on Monday if UNLV wins this game and they are the Mountain West champions? Like, what do you think changes for this program?
I mean, I don't know if anything does. I think this year they've established themselves as what the program could look like in the future, that they have a really solid foundation that is unique to the league it plays in, where, no other team in the league has the combination of the practice facility and the stadium, right? I know Colorado State's got great facilities. I know San Diego State's got a new stadium that's been empty all year. I know San Jose's in the middle of a remodel, but nobody has the combination of the city, Las Vegas, the Allegiant Stadium experience, the practice facility, and the payroll. UNLV is paying its head coach more than any other team in the league.
The only element that's missing there is the NIL, and I think UNLV is catching up. They're ahead of a lot of teams in the conference, but if you get to be the number one NIL team in the Mountain West and you have a competent coach, then you are set up for future long-term success. Like, everything you mentioned there is a real factor, and UNLV is somehow, they did it. Like, over the past 8 years since they announced that Fertitta complex, they've somehow turned the program into one that is not just competitive, but they're at the top of the Mountain West in terms of facilities and all the things that you mentioned. So it took a while, but then when it happened suddenly as soon as they got the coach in place. So I guess credit to UNLV, a bunch of different administrations just sort of piecing it together to get to this point. But they look pretty well set up for the future, I would say.
Yeah, and that's the encouraging thing, is that my dad's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
He loves you. He calls you Gramalica.
He does. He did my taxes one year.
Yeah, he's a good guy. So he says a lot of his sports theories are very all over the place. But one of the things he constantly chimes on is that you need a coach who's been a head coach before. Sure, in the history of college football, any coach has been an assistant coach before. You just need your first start. And usually a mid-major university like UNLV, that's what they're going to get, right? They're going to get guys who are great coordinators who we think that they could be the man in the top seat, and let's see if they are. And my dad's like, that never pans out. You need to have a guy like Odom. He's just singing his praises because this is what he said.
Yeah.
Who's been there before. And it's just this perfect storm, Mike, of, Barry Odom coached in the SEC. There's a lot of darn good football played there. And everybody saw how Arkansas dropped after he left. And they say that he was basically coaching that school as well. And yes, Barry Odom's a great coach, but it goes to that having somebody with experience is just massively important. That's why I like the hire by San Diego State. They bring in the guy that was at Kent State.
Yeah, Sean Lewis. Coaching UNLV this year was not an easy job. This is a team that had a quarterback change early in the first quarter of the season to a redshirt freshman, so that's something you have to manage. They've lost guys on defense to injury, some of their most productive players. They've had a lot of close games that they've had to win. They've had comeback wins. They came back from 17 down against Air Force on the road. They came back from 17 down against Vanderbilt in Mayava's first game, with a freshman quarterback. It's been... Not every coach would have gotten them there. Not even any decent coach would have gotten them there. It was a really, really well-coached season by Barry Odom. Obviously, I'm not saying anything controversial here. He was the Mountain West Coach of the Year in a landslide. But, and I wouldn't take it for granted, the fact that his experience and sort of that steadiness that he brings to, the figurehead stuff is important. And he's, steady, and he always pretty much on message and very consistent. And that's he got them through the season in really good shape for a team that not a lot of coaches would have been able to get UNLV to this point.
Sure. I mean, in every championship season, you're going to win some games that you probably shouldn't have, right?
Yeah.
Even look back to when 2013 when UNLV went to the Heart of Dallas Bowl, right?
Yeah.
You had Caleb Herring became the quarterback, and all of a sudden UNLV won close game after close game after close game, and next thing you know, they qualify for a bowl, and Bobby Houck gets an extension when he thought he was going to get fired. He wasn't even really recruiting, and here we are. I don't know if this is just one of those magical seasons where everything bounced UNLV's way, like you mentioned Air Force and Vandy, or if, could you imagine if the OC, the head coach, and the quarterback stay for the next 3 years?
I was going to bring that up at some point in the podcast. If that scenario happens, say somehow Odom slips through the crack, he stays at UNLV for another year, that would not shock me. Marion staying for another year would completely shock me. But if that happens somehow, they're probably picked number 1 in the Mountain West next year in the preseason, right?
Yeah. So the thing is Marion,
bringing back a quarterback, bringing back your all-conference linebacker, leader of the defense, the offensive line.
I mean, the thing with Marion, who knows who you're going to lose? And here we are talking about the future, even though I didn't want to. But I don't know if Marion stays. I mean, there's no way he stays because UNLV's not paying its coordinators millions.
And there's two, for Barry Odom, the only way he would leave is for a head coaching job, obviously, where Marion has got 2 lanes. He could go as a head coach to a San Diego State or maybe a mid-major program, or a Power 5 school could drop $2 million in his lap to be a coordinator. So he's got head coach openings to be considered for, and he's being considered for big-time offensive coordinator. So he's got 2 lanes. So I don't see I don't see how he ends up not getting a job. But if he does somehow.
I mean, the question is if he does get the job, do you try to promote from within and still run that same offense?
That's the question, because I don't know how many people he's brought into this offensive staff. He was a late addition himself when Petrino fell through. So, does he take that entire playbook with him? Does Odom go back to do you bring in someone and try to teach them the playbook and have them run it? Or do you go back to Bobby Petrino? I'm kind of
who just
half joking.
The Arkansas OC.
Oh, is that official?
Yeah.
I know that it was rumored. But so Barry Odom has proven that he'll take some big swings with that offensive coordinator hire. So I'm sure they'll find they'll settle on someone that they like. But yeah, that's one of the big questions if and when Marion does leave. Where do they go from there in terms of philosophy? But
yeah, and I think with Odom, I mean, of course, a school like Houston in the Big 12 has probably got $4 or $5 million to deal with, right? And you're not going to turn that money down, obviously.
It'd be tough.
It would be tough. Would be tough. I mean, maybe our saving grace at UNLV is that his son's going to be a senior in high school. Maybe he doesn't want his kid to play for his 3rd high school in 3 years.
I could see that. I could also see that being you're somewhat close enough. Or I could also see the kid staying, and if he wanted to stay and finish out at it's Faith, he goes to Faith.
Yeah,
right?
Correct.
I could see him playing a year here, and the family's split from fall to spring or whatever football season's in, and then he graduates early, and then heads to Houston. So I don't think that's a huge impediment, but maybe it does pull at him to stay in Las Vegas a little bit. I think the biggest thing probably working in UNLV's favor there is that he's done the Power 5 thing before. He's been a head coach at a Power 5 school. Yeah. He's gotten fired after 3 years for missing a bowl game once. So he kind of knows that, if I go to a Power 5 and I have a rough year, I could get blown out after 2 or 3 years. But if I stay at UNLV, he's got so much capital built up now. Yeah. It would take him a decade to get fired here.
Yeah.
And he could probably, the way that we're talking, the way it's set up, maybe he thinks he could run this conference for 10 years. Maybe that's something that appeals to him.
Sure.
It's not like the old days of UNLV where he's being paid nothing. He is the highest paid coach in the conference. He's getting $2 million a year. He could probably get bumped up after this if they extend him after this year. So, I mean, it's not the worst option in the world if he wanted to stay at UNLV a little bit longer. He's done the Power 5.
Yeah, and even if he did leave, the season that UNLV had and the money that they're paying, it's not like they're going to, have to settle for Marcus Arroyo.
You think they're a more attractive job now, is what you're saying?
Absolutely.
If they had to fill
Absolutely. With that, what if, Odom left? Would you promote Marion?
I think that would happen in a second. If Barry Odom was hired by Houston, the day after the championship game, I think the first call is to Brennan Marion and like, hey, do you want to be the highest paid coach in the Mountain West?
Mm-hmm.
I think they would give him the keys in a second. But it's tough because Marion may actually be a hotter candidate than Odom, even though Odom's name is out there in a bunch of different openings. So
the thing I like about Odom is that he's just, like we've said before on this podcast, is he's very steady, and he got a playbook of what not to do, and he's followed it to a T. He's not only been a home run off the field, but a home run on the field.
One of the things that stuck out to me was after they beat Air Force, the comeback, the final drive where they had to have that defensive stand on the goal line. I asked him post game. I said, what were some of your coaching points on that final drive and that final stand? What were you saying? And he said, I let my defensive coaches handle that. I'm the head coach. I stay out of that. I let them do their thing. That's their job in the moment. And that was really interesting to me because there have been other coaches here. Marcus Arroyo, for one, who was just so hands-on with the quarterbacks. It was, and to see Odom be like, I'm delegating that stuff because that's how we do it in week 1 in the second quarter. That's how we do it in week 6 in the third quarter. So I'm not going to change it up because it's it's the biggest drive of the season. I'm not going to parachute in and take control and start giving orders. And now I'm calling the plays. He's like, they're steady. Like the way that they're doing it is the way that they're doing it. He trusts his coaches. So that was a big, that was an interesting revelation for me, I think, that even in the biggest moment of the season, he was just, we're steady with what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting to say the least. It's something that you hope becomes a semi-regular occurrence, but like I said last week, you need to kind of cherish the opportunity and kind of go from there. So, We'll have coverage.
Are you wrapping up? Are we gonna do a prediction from you for Saturday? What do you think about this game? Like, to me, I feel like it's gonna be UNLV's gonna be down at some point. They're gonna be down 7 or 10, and they're gonna have to come back and make a game of it. I don't know why I feel that way. I think that we've seen that pattern from them in a bunch of different games against good opponents, Fresno State, Air Force.
Have you heard my theory that there's certain teams out there that, like, even if UNLV were to lose this game, it would still be a successful season?
Of course. This is the best. This is
the typical cherry on top game. And for me, I think they lose by 2 touchdowns.
Oh, so you think they haven't been blown out since Michigan. No one in the Mountain West, like Fresno State had them down double digits, Air Force had them down double digits, both on the road, and they came back and won one of those games, almost won the other one. But you think Boise, even with all the tumult they've been through this year, you think they can outpace UNLV by 2 touchdowns?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've got better players. And again, I just, UNLV, it's not like they've been destroying teams, right? They've been in some really close games. Fresno, they lost. San Jose, they lost. Air Force, they rallied to win.
Those are good. Those are all good teams, though. They've handled their business against bad teams. They have blown out the bad teams.
Reno, right?
Yeah,
Probably the worst of them all.
big blowout. New Mexico, they blew
Can't
out.
believe that guy didn't get fired. If that goes not to tell you about the state of the finances at UNR, right?
So are you trying to reverse jinx them, because you were saying earlier you didn't pick them to go to a bowl this year and they had their best season in decades? So are you trying to reverse it?
I'm not getting into any of that. What I'm trying to say is that on paper, Boise is better players. UNLV is better coaching. UNLV has the home field advantage. The game's a 2-point spread, right?
I have not seen the spread yet.
Boise's favored by 2.
Okay. That's on UNLV's home field, so that's.
Yeah, so if it was on a neutral site, say if they were playing like in New York City, Boise would be favored by 5 or 6. So Boise's probably a touchdown better than UNLV.
Okay, I can see that. I don't see UNLV getting blown out.
And I also expect Boise to bring a good bit of people.
That's also something that I expect. This is sort of a bonus game for them as well. A lot of those fans can, they fired their coach. The season's over. Like we're waving the white flag. We're done. And then all of a sudden you're in the championship game. So this is also a bonus game for them. So I just wonder, do you think we're going to get a home field for UNLV on Saturday?
That would be.
I've never seen them play with a home field advantage at home, where the crowd is so loud that it's like impacting the game.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen that.
Yeah.
Could this be the first time?
If it was anybody but Boise, my mind goes back to the Boise BYU bowl games. It's about a 10-hour drive from Boise here. Their fans have made it. This is more attractive than any other bowl they're probably going to go to.
That's a good point.
I wouldn't even be surprised if the crowd's 60-40, in my humble opinion.
You know what? That's better than UNLV could have hoped for in a regular season game against Boyd. Like at least UNLV will have. It won't be a true road game for UNLV, which is. We'll have to see the turnout. I think I'd probably take Boise straight up, but I do think UNLV is going to make it close. The way this season has gone, with all the magic that's been sprinkled throughout, I think we'll get a good game.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you have a prediction, Mike? Or are you like Kurt Hertford? You can't predict.
I think Boise's probably going to win, but by within a score, like 3 points, 5 points. I think UNLV will make it close. They might have a chance to win. If you asked me, like, who would I bet on straight up, I'd probably take Boise on the final possession. But UNLV goes home happy. They go to some bowl game. They have a great time. They try to get that 10th win.
They get
it's
some
a great
bowl
season.
swag.
Yeah.
They play 14 games.
It's amazing. You get an extra month of practice. All good things.
Your recruiting gets imploded. Odom leaves for another school, and your new head coach is
this podcast went on about 30 seconds too long.
Yeah. All right. Well, for Mike, I'm Ray, and thank everybody for listening.